Hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to Woo Can Cook. My name is Wesley, and this is a show where we are slowly cooking our way through all of the food from my childhood. Today we're adding to our series on foods from the Bay Area restaurant scene with a lemongrass chicken vermicelli noodle bowl inspired by the one found at Miss Saigon here in Oakland, California. Like many of the other Bay Area restaurant homages that we have done in this series, I used to live next door to this spot, and here in Oakland, Miss Saigon is known as a local Vietnamese staple of the community. For those who are not familiar, the vermicelli rice noodle bowl is a classic Vietnamese takeout dish here in the States that prominently features, as you might guess, vermicelli rice noodles and can be accompanied by various forms of veggies and aromatics. This includes the carrots, cucumbers, bean sprouts, and lettuce that we're going to be using in our version today, but can also include additional garnishments like cilantro, crushed peanuts, mint leaves, and more. Then rounding all of this off will be the highlight of the dish, which is some crispy seared chicken thigh marinated with a bit of lemongrass for a super aromatic marinade. Okay, so let's get into it.
And I'm reminded of how bad I used to want it, and yes, I still got through the more like a tookie of my 20s, and it's breaking me down.
Okay, so kicking things off, I'm starting by assembling my lemongrass marinade here. We're going to be blitzing all of this in our food processor today, so I'm not going to be particularly careful with my chopping for this bit. This is 4 cloves of crushed and peeled garlic to start, followed by my lemongrass. I'm trimming off the roots and ends here, then peeling off the tough exterior layer of the stalk to reveal a more tender and aromatic core underneath. I'm slicing these open and then doing a rough dice on 2 whole stalks, then dropping these into my food processor with my garlic. Not really sure why I put the garlic in such a large bowl. Then moving on to our wet ingredients, this is the juice of half of a lime going in for a bit of brightness, followed by 4 tablespoons or a quarter cup each of fish sauce and soy sauce. This is where all of our fermented umami is gonna live today. I'm rounding this all out with a tablespoon of brown sugar, then blitzing this in the food processor in 3-second pulses until a paste-like texture starts to form like this. Then next I'm adding this to a Ziploc bag along with 3 medium chicken thighs, giving everything a good shake to combine and letting this marinate in the fridge for 30 minutes or up to 1 hour. Now, fair warning, I know I have gotten lazy with my marinades all the time, but this time I really do mean it. This has got to marinate for at least 30 minutes, because that lemongrass is kind of the whole point of what we're doing today, so don't get impatient on this one. Seriously, I really mean it this time. Anyway, while that's marinating in the fridge, we're diving into our veggies next. Like I mentioned earlier, the possibilities here are pretty much endless. I know that the Miss Saigon bowl makes use of some fresh chives, cilantro, and fried shallots that I left out today. I personally think that by far the more important aspect is that whatever veggies that you do use, you need to make sure that they are very fresh, since we're going to be putting them into our bowl raw today. So I'm sticking with a couple of veggies that I felt like most folks would be able to reasonably find in their own attempts, but feel free to get creative here. This is 2 medium carrots, which I'm peeling and then julienning by slicing into planks and then flipping them on their sides stacked on top of each other and slicing into finer strips. We're going to do the same thing with our cucumbers, but first I'm slicing these into quarters so that we can remove their seeds, because these are going to end up getting pretty slimy if we leave them in. I'm doing a similar julienne cut with my cucumbers, then washing up about 8 ounces each of bean sprouts and butter lettuce. Then I'm setting all of this aside while we dive into our dipping sauce or nook chum. Okay, so for our nook chum sauce, just like we did with our veggies, we again want to keep in mind that everything we're using here is going to be going in raw. So, and I can't overstate this enough, fresh ingredients are going to be absolutely key here. This is 3 Thai chilies sliced up to start, which will be carrying all of our heat today. Then next, I'm crushing and mincing 4 cloves of garlic and adding all of this to a mixing bowl so that we can combine it with our wet ingredients next. First up here is half of a lime, which I'm rolling in the palm of my hand to loosen up, then passing through a sieve to catch any errant seeds that might come out. Next up is 4 tablespoons of fish sauce, which I'm diluting with an equal amount of water, and then rounding all of this out with 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Next up, I'm moving on to my noodles next. I've got my very largest mixing bowl out and we're rehydrating 10.5 ounces or 300 grams of vermicelli rice noodles. Yes, I did say 10.5 ounces because these packages are measured out in grams, which is a little annoying. But if I'm being honest though, 8 ounces will also work just fine if that's what you've got, because I did have a little bit of extra noodles myself. I'm soaking these in boiling water for about 5 minutes until tender, then immediately straining before setting aside to avoid overcooking because these things are super delicate. Finally, last up, 30 minutes to 1 hour later, we are circling back around to our marinated chicken. You want to bear in mind here that lemongrass, unlike the garlic that we also added, is not gonna cook well in our sear, so I'm doing my very best to remove the larger chunks of lemongrass that are still hanging around. I found that a very stiff brush seemed to do the trick, but if you want to avoid this step, you can also just skip the food processor entirely and throw that lemongrass into the Ziploc bag as a full stock. It might not be quite as aromatic, but certainly a lot less annoying though. So over on the stove, I've got my wok heating up as hot as possible, then I'm adding 4 tablespoons of peanut oil and, as always, long yao for that non-stick surface. We're gonna do a wok sear on our chicken today in lieu of an open flame barbecue, which has always led to the best possible barbecue chicken that I've ever managed without firing up the grill. I'm adding this one piece at a time at the very center of my round-bottomed wok, where all of that oil is starting to pull up. This is really important because that oil is gonna be key to getting a good sear. I'm letting this go for a full 2.5 minutes before turning and searing for an additional minute, then repeating with our remaining chicken thighs. I'm looking for 165 degrees F internal for these bad boys to make sure that they're fully cooked through, then setting them aside to rest for 5 minutes before slicing them up. This is also very important, do not cut into these immediately, because all of that wonderful juice that we just locked in with our sear will come out onto your cutting board if you chop them up too early. Truly tragic. So while that's resting, I'm assembling my bowl here with a handful of vermicelli noodles to start, followed by my butter lettuce, carrots, cucumbers, bean sprouts, lemongrass chicken, and finally a few spoonfuls of my fish sauce mixture to finish, and we're ready to eat. Okay, so this is honestly one of my favorite Vietnamese dishes of all time, and it's just a really big comfort food for me. The chicken has a wonderful aromatic quality to it that pairs really well with the sweet and spicy fish sauce that we made, and could very easily be reproduced in the same style with pork, beef, tofu, or really any other kind of protein that you happen to have on hand. I'm also a huge fan of the simplicity of this dish too. You might have noticed that the only thing that we actually cooked on the stove today was our chicken, while everything else that we're eating is a raw veggie, which I love. The super crisp freshness of our veggies pairs wonderfully with the fluffy bed of vermicelli rice noodles and is just a nice contrast to the heavier stir fries that we have been doing of late too. Okay, so that's it everyone. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you give this one a shot. We'll be cooking through this one live this coming Tuesday right here on YouTube at 6:30 PST, so tune in then and cook along with me too if you'd like. For the Bay Area locals, if you haven't yet, definitely make your way over to Miss Saigon in Oakland. They have some of my favorite vermicelli bowls in town and have always been my favorite spot for Vietnamese food, even now that I don't live next door. Also, if you are local to the Bay Area, we'll be kicking off the second location for the Woo Can Cook fried rice pop-up at the Hayward Farmers Market this coming Saturday, so swing by and come say hi if you can. More about that at woocancook.com/eats. As always, like, comment, subscribe, share, press some buttons, and I'll see you soon.